So welcome back to the 42284 podcast. We're coming to you from the She Shed in beautiful downtown Sunfish, Kentucky. I went to the Union County Fair a couple weeks ago, which Morganfield, which is 30 minutes from my house. It is the redneck capital of the world.
That's where my 7,000 came from.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So Lindsay got her picture taken with one of the 1,000-pound sisters. If you all watched the TLC
I've seen it.
show,
I've seen it.
I tell everybody they're her cousins, but they're really not. But they're there, and she's like, a celebrity. They're a celebrity. I'm going to get my picture took with them. And so we watch a demolition derby that runs one heat, and then it's over before dark. And I'm like, the last demolition derby I went to at Edmonds County lasted until like 3 in the morning or something.
Yeah, I think last year they had one run plumb over to way up at like 6, 7 in the morning.
I don't know, but I came through and there were cars to 250. I mean, if you're listening, you're not from here, a mile up the road each way.
Well, I mean, it was, so the boys, we were kind of looking for something to do, and we knew it was going on. And I said something about the demolition derby. They're like, well, what's that? My kids have never been to
I've never been to
kids had never been to a demolition derby.
You live, wait a minute, you live in Edmonson County and you've never been to a demolition derby?
I walked through one time when Jared was little, and he said, what's wrong with them people, Daddy?
But anyhow, so while we're there, when the derby's over, you know, they've got a big grandstand. It tears loose. And I'm like, what is that noise I'm hearing? And it's like somebody calling a horse race. And so I walk and I go towards it and I get over there and it is pig races. Have you all ever seen a pig race?
Do they ride them or just
No,
race
they
the
just
pigs?
turn them loose like greyhound dogs and
Big old pig, boy.
yeah, it just.
I've seen them kids do that.
Maybe they got jockeys for them, though. You know.
So anyhow, I'll show you all some video. But they had this guy who come in from Missouri, and he is a traveling show that they race pigs. He's got an aluminum fence and different pigs, and he calls the race. I told you after it was over, I went over. I said, "Man, I'll be honest with you. I was at the Derby about a month and a half ago. This is way more entertaining than the Derby." So I'll share some video with you. Maybe you can put it on the website.
Did you boys ever raise pigs? Did y'all ever in the hog business?
You know Kyle.
When I was a kid, I
Kyle's
got
still got
to
the
tell you.
equipment to do it.
Oh,
That
no, he
reminded
don't
me of
either.
a story.
I'm out.
When I was a
Hog-free.
kid, we had about 10 sows. We had an old barn out there that was on blocks, and eventually these hogs just destroyed the barn. But story about me and old Jason. We had pigs. We'd have about 150 pigs at a time, and we'd bobtail them and castrate the males and everything. But them pigs we would separate them from their mamas and work them all the same day. Well, them sows would be in there and they'd be tore all to pieces.
Mad.
We took their pigs away, and them pigs is in there squealing. So when we'd get done, Daddy would go out and he'd feed them sows to calm them back down. Well, we're standing at the back gate. The doors done fell off the old barn. We standing at the back gate. I got our arms leaned up there, and Daddy's out there feeding them sows. And Jason turns and looks at me and closes that one eye and grins. He said, "Squeal like a pig." I said, "I ain't doing it." He said, "Oh, come on, squeal like a pig." I said, "I ain't doing it." He said, "Well, I will." And he squealed like a pig, and when he did, them sows came at Daddy. I mean, just walk.
Yeah.
I mean, mouths going. Daddy's sitting on a post, and he just throws that bucket and falls over the fence backwards and lands right on his head. Of course, the fence wasn't waist high, you know.
Right.
You don't have to take a high fence. Daddy come up from there, and if y'all remember Daddy, he combed that hair around. That hair was hanging down on one side and had cuckleburrs all in it. It looked like a horse been running out all winter. He comes around the barn and comes back in the front and walks up to us, and he's almost whispering. He said, "Y'all get to the house." I started to take up for myself. I said, "Daddy, I didn't." And he said, "No, y'all get to the house. Y'all trying to kill me." This was long about the same time I'd let the well lid on his head. And I'll have to say, Kevin told it, I don't think Jason was around when I let the well lid on his head.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get it off, and I just took off running to the house, and Mama could hear him screaming in the house. Mama come around the side of the house that day. She said, "What's wrong with your daddy?" And I mean, her eyes are bugged out. I said, "I dropped the well lid on his head." She said, "Where's he at?" I said, "He's still stuck over there. I can't get it off." It took me and Mama both to get that thing off his head.
He's still there.
I mean, he had a big blue circle where that block had pressed on there. It looked like a big purple donut on the side of his. But I mean, and then wasn't long after. Of course, Kevin had told y'all that story about throwing them dirt clods against the barn. I got one even better than that on us. We was sitting between the tobacco barn and where Mom and Dad built the house they built. We was back there one day, and we'd been setting tobacco, and Mom and Sarah had already went to the house. Sarah was a very short-term tobacco setter. She wasn't out there for very long. But I, of course, like Kevin said, he never got to ride the setter till he's, mid-20s. Yeah. I was left-handed, so I sat in the right seat and fed with my left hand. Jason sat on the other side. Well, Daddy's over filling the setter up, and we're piling all the plants we can on the setter. And Jason picks up about 12, 14 dirt clods, a little bigger than your thumb. And I thought, what in the world is he doing with them? Well, Jason would sit there and he'd set plants, and in a minute he'd throw one at Kevin and Kevin was following the setter.
He's following, yeah.
And of course, every once in a while, Jason would set one upside down just to make Kevin mad, just set him off.
Just so he.
Well, he'd throw 3 or 4 before Kevin even seen that he'd thrown one.
Yeah.
And then Jason he'd catch him not looking, and he'd throw one at him. Well, finally he hit him. And then Kevin couldn't figure out where they was coming from. And finally Kevin saw that it was Jason throwing them. Kevin picked up one about not hardly as big as a tennis ball and threw it as hard as he could at Jason. And it went over Jason, over the top of the setter, and hit Daddy right between the shoulder blades.
Oh, no.
He's on that. I could hear that 135 idling down and the key coming off. And I was done off the setter and watching Daddy. And as Daddy come off the side of the tractor, his belt's coming off. What's going on back here? Well, Jason told the gospel truth. He whipped Kevin for what he did. He whipped Jason for what he did. He whipped me for laughing. I laughed because they got in trouble, and he whipped me too. You think it's funny? Come over here. I'll give you some of it.
Give you a dose of it.
I got more whippings growing up for laughing when they get in trouble than anything I did myself. He'd take us in the utility room in that old house where I grew up. And he'd whip us in that utility room because it's the biggest room in the house, and we'd just dance in circles around him while he's whipping us. I got to where I'd go outside and get under the window and listen. I could hear everything that's going on, but when he come out, he couldn't see me laughing. So I finally got smart enough to do that.
You got to admit them whippings probably done you some good.
Listen, I got whippings that I didn't deserve, but there was a lot more that I deserved that he never found out about.
Yeah,
these makeups.
Yeah,
one of the worst whippings we ever got, Joanne come out of we had a side building on that next to that old house where Joanne had a beauty shop, and Mom I don't know, it's just me and Jason there, and I think Joanne is kind of supposed to watch us. We was playing Cowboys and Indians on top of the house. Jason was on top of the house looking over the top peak of the house shooting at me, and I was on top of that building shooting at him.
Yeah.
And Joanne came out and found us on top of the house in the outbuilding and scolded us and told us she wouldn't tell Daddy, but God rest her soul. I loved her. She told Daddy anyway. Daddy liked her. He liked her. Oh, he lit us up for that, boy. He got us good for the Cowboys and Indians on top of the house. That was a bad one.
Well, how was it having Larry as an uncle?
Larry Smith, let me tell you something. All of my uncles, my mom's sisters, if they told me to do something, it's the same as my mama telling me to do something. And, Larry was always fun.
Larry is fun.
Fun
and funny.
Larry and Bill both. Of course, I wasn't around. My mom's youngest sister lives in Bowling Green, and her husband was a professor at Western. And but Larry, from the time I was little, if Mom and Dad didn't have something for us to do, they'd take us over there, and we'd feed the bottle calves, there's buckets back then. We'd help them milk. We'd spend the night with them. We'd get up the next morning and go help them milk. I don't know if we was as much help as we was just like, jar gnats around there. But I've held a flashlight a lot of nights for Larry down there in Harold's garage when they lived over on 185 right there where Rockman lives.
Right.
We'd go over there and spend the night. Larry won a Monopoly game one night and he's asleep. Of course, Kevin told y'all about him. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. By 8 o'clock, of course, Larry got up early. And Larry worked a lot back then. And Larry works a lot now, but he won a Monopoly game one night and he's sitting there asleep. Didn't even know he won it. Hey, Uncle Larry, you won. All right, I'm going to bed.
Just
off he'd go. But Larry he'd do a lot of, when me and Jason was little, we was only grandkids on that side of the family. So we was like royalty. We had a stack of coloring books, 4 foot tall. Right. Every time one of them go somewhere, they'd bring us a coloring book or something. But, Larry would, every time he went to stockyards, he'd let us ride down there with him. And he had an old 3/4 ton Chevy truck. I think it's a 74 model. And we'd ride around and had an 8-track player in it. We'd play them 8-track tapes.
Oh, that's big stuff, in.
Hey, let me tell you something. We had a lot of fun with Uncle Larry. I mean, we had a lot of fun with him, and they spent a lot of time with us. And, of course, then, you know, when I was 2021, I moved over there and lived right next door to Larry all those years, you know. Of course, when my grandmother got killed in a car wreck, Larry and Joanne moved over there, and that was the summer before my senior year. And then a couple of years later, when I moved home from Campbellsville, I moved over there, and I lived in a trailer between where my house was and where Jason's house is. I lived in a trailer up there where I've got a barn now, and been right there with them all that time. And you know, they moved over there because they had the dairy. For a while, me and Jason, of course, when that happened, me and Jason milked while they were gone to the hospital with my up there when my grandmother was up there before she, you know, during that day or two before she died.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've spent a lot of time with old Larry. Yeah, he's something else now.
No, we love to aggravate Larry, don't we, Brian?
Oh yeah.
I tell you what, he's been pretty constant in my life.
Oh well.
Yeah.
We have picked and aggravated, and Brandon's terrorized him with snakes, and I've seen him lit on fire a couple times.
Why do you look at me every time somebody's lit on fire?
Let me tell you one I pulled
Okay, so
on
maybe
him.
I did.
I got old Kyle one time. The station hadn't been open over very long, and Jared was little. Of course, Jared, I don't know if y'all know this. Kyle's got another nickname. Jared has called him Sweet Pea since he was little.
No, I didn't know that.
Jared, just by the time he's old enough to talk, to this day, he calls Kyle Sweet Pea.
Well, I was just looking on my phone to try to remember what rodeo y'all went to the other day.
Oh, Lord.
Franklin, Tennessee rodeo.
Yeah, Franklin, Tennessee
and
rodeo.
I've got pictures and videos, and every time Jared will send it, there you go, Sweet Pea, or good luck, Sweet Pea, or something like that. I love Jared. He's great.
You know, Kyle was young, and he had some boys over there working for him and stuff, and somebody right behind the cash register, they'd knocked a hole in the wall over there.
Had a chair sitting there and had knocked a hole in the drywall.
So, I don't know. It is up in the spring. It's about 2 or 3 weeks after Easter. And I was over there pumping gas, and Kyle's over there somewhere else pumping gas. He'd walk over and he'd say, "You got it?" And I'd say, "Yeah," because he's busy. He's out there building business and everything. So I look back at the truck. I've got about 3 or 4 Easter eggs out there been cankered up, you know. So I grabbed one of them napkins over there. Kyle's busy over there. I just grabbed them eggs up. As I'm walking in, I'm crushing them in my hand. I just walked in there and stuffed them in that hole. I went over there about 2 or 3 days later, and I don't know who the kid was that was in there working. It wasn't him. They had both doors open with a 5-gallon bucket of hydraulic fluid, and every time they'd walk behind the cash register, they'd gag.
I think it was Drew Taylor.
Oh,
Drew had a weak stomach.
Oh, son.
Oh, it got right
the
in
smell
there.
of
It got right in there.
It was awful. Yeah. I'll tell you one I did worse than that. I did it to Ken Raymer one time. I put a bunch of rotten fish up in his back bumper of his truck over at ALC one day. I went over and poor old Ken is out there digging them. I figured out what it was, and he's digging them out that evening. Oh, God, they stunk.
I had a Jeep. I was up at Farmer's there one night. It's after dark. I went out and got in. I had the top off of it. Mm-hmm. And I sit down in that seat, and I was like, oh. And the seat was wet. And I thought, well, who put water in my seat? So I took it home, parked it. A couple days later, I went and got in it, took off up the road, and I thought, oh, my gosh, what is that smell? And Jill, who's supposed to love me and is supposed to take care of me, put catfish up under my seat. Ugh. Oh, it was bad. She poured water in my seat and put catfish up under it. So I told her, I said, because I thought Kyle done it, you know. Of course, she fessed up to it. I was up there one time, my sweet tea got down to just nothing. Kyle was waiting table. He come around. He
not me.
Some more tea. Not this Kyle. Kyle Blank.
There you
go. Jill and Marion's son. I said, yeah, I'll take some more. So he brought it back and set it down. And I was talking to somebody, and I took a drink, and it got to about top of my stomach before I realized that was not sweet tea.
What did he put?
He put vinegar.
Woo! I was thinking dill pickle juice.
Take your breath.
I swallowed it, and I mean, it got down in my stomach, and I'm telling you, I couldn't get it up or send it down any further. I thought I was going to die. And let me tell you, if you need a good flush, vinegar will do it. It was the gift that kept on giving for a couple days. He
Oh,
laughed
Lord.
and laughed and laughed.
Have I told y'all about Andrew Bolton fixing me up with the dead animal at the trailer? Brian's talking about the trailer. Have I told y'all that?
I don't think so.
Somebody had put I want to say it was a possum. It might have been a coon or something else, but it was a dead varmint of some sort in my. It was one of my trucks. One of y'all was talking last time about that little red S10 I had. I had multiple vehicles, so I would just drive one until run out of gas or battery went bad or something.
Battery
I'd just
went
get
dead.
another one for a while, drive it for a while. So I think they put this in my green truck, so I was driving that little S10 for during that time. And she had got swelled up and right. I mean, smelling right. Andrew had that little teal Ford Ranger at that time. Do you remember that little truck he had? Drove it forever. And he had come over there at the trailer and was out with some of them boys and had left it parked in the driveway. And so those Rangers, I mean, the seats just right up against the back of the cab. So I took that thing and put it in behind his front seat. And when I pushed that seat back, I heard it go, phew. And so I just shut the door fast. Well, he don't never say nothing about it. Of course, I don't say nothing about it because he'll know it's me then. Well, I come into the trailer a day or two later, and I smell just death, just rotten death. I go into Jared's bedroom, which is all the way on this end of the trailer, and it smells like that. I go to my room, which is 76 feet the other way, smells just like it. Smells like it in the living room, smells like it in the bathroom. Couldn't pinpoint it. I get up under it. I'm crawling around. I don't know where this thing is. I lived with it for about a week. You know where it was?
In the ductwork.
The air return of the ductwork.
Really?
You talk about genius. I was mad, but I had to tip my hat to him. You know,
Who did that to you?
Andrew Bolton. So
Oh, my
as
God.
that heat and air,
Oh,
I don't
put
remember
it
if it was
out through the
cold. I
whole
think it was.
house.
It was blowing it out every vent. It was blowing that smell out every vent.
Yeah, that's genius.
Oh, I mean, tip your hat to that.
Yeah. So did he ever say how long did it take him to find it in his truck? Did he ever say?
No, I mean, he found it when he got back.
Oh, instantly,
Yeah,
huh?
he found it instantly. But it just took a little while, you know, for that smell to get carrying around in the house there.
So probably 20 years ago, some fellas, I ain't gonna mention any names, may have got out in sunfish and got to catching possums, and they may have got stuck in mailboxes
Yeah.
and a few places like that. But one of them may have got put in a fella's tractor,
Cab tractor.
thinking he would thinking he would catch it the next day or two. And how long did that tractor sit there, Brandon?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
A couple of weeks with a possum in it that was not dead. And that possum may have ate a lot before we put him in there, or before it was put in there. Edit that out. And it may have turned loose and all that in the cab tractor.
Who owned that cab tractor?
Oh, he was a redheaded fella who lives down by you.
Oh, my Lord. Oh, Lord. Well, I want to ask y'all a question. Was any of y'all ever in on the garbage can antics at my house?
No.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I think I know some that were in on
I think the mayor was in on that, wasn't he?
I think so.
I think the mayor and I know D. White was in on it. And I'm pretty sure
I
James
think I heard
Vincent up
us-
here, Lyndon's boy, they was the three main culprits.
I think I heard a story about some rocks and roots and stuff on that
Oh,
deal. wasn't
son,
it?
let me tell y'all. This is a great story right here. Of course, y'all know I've got that big horse barn over there. And
Yeah.
at the time I was training horses, I had a lot of horses I was training. I'd get up sometimes before daylight. And I'd take off. I'd be in the barn at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd work 2 or 3 horses before daylight.
Yeah.
Well, that morning I'd worked like 2 horses before daylight, and I come outside, and I look at the end of my driveway out there, and I thought, there's been a horse or a cow got killed last night. All I could see was a dark form down there because it wasn't daylight yet. I thought, I've had something to get killed. And I walked down there.
Or was it in your...
In the end of my driveway right there going into my house, there was a pile of tree roots down there at the end of my driveway, boys. I couldn't have got out if I'd wanted to. I couldn't have put it in 4-wheel drive and got over the top of it. I was so mad I couldn't see straight. I'm down there at daylight
Moving
with my
roots.
tractor bucket. Larry Smith drives by and he said, I Dad, what's going on? I said, some blankety blank has piled this blanket up out here. Larry just looked at me and just drove on.
It was so the story I got, because it was pretty genius. I'll have to give it to the boys. Was they was picking up roots and rocks on some new ground for somebody worked, cleaned up. And they had a pile of them in the back of the truck. And so one of them gets in the back and puts a 2x6 against the pile and gets their feet against it. And the other one backs in the driveway and just shoves the pile out.
Pushes the whole pile out.
There's
I heard
like
about
3 tractor buckets of this stuff. It took me an hour and a half to clean that up.
Yeah.
It may have been Robbie Hogan.
No, it was.
Robbie taught me how to do that.
It was them. Listen, these boys would come over just ever so often. My garbage can's missing. I found it down there in the creek down there one time. Garbage strung everywhere. I found it over on 185. Later on, I got to call it the Garbage Can Olympics. They would drive by my house.
Didn't you fall out of your loader bucket into the creek trying to fish it out?
Yes,
one day?
I sure did. I was down there trying to get my garbage can. And son, garbage just strung everywhere. And it's down there in the creek, and I'm trying to get the tractor. I'm in the tractor bucket trying to get and it's full of water. The creek's full of water. I'm wet from the waist down. They would drive by and grab my garbage can and see how many miles an hour they could get going before they had to let it go.
Or before the wheels come
I
off.
was going to say the wheels will come off.
I found it
somewhere
all the
around
way
50
Big
to
Reedy
55
Church
mile an hour.
Christ
Not that I know.
It was everywhere. Well, I finally figured out what was going on. Mm-hmm. So I figured out D-White's in on it. So it wasn't, I don't know, a week or so later, I see Donk down at the corner market. I said, Donk, I need some help. What do you need, bud? I told him what's going on. Donk went into a blazing
fury fit.
Yes, he said, man trying to work, somebody over there doing stuff like that. Well, next day at school, D-White, he eases over to me and said,
Because you were a teacher at the time.
Yeah, I was teaching it. I was just teaching it.
Dwight was one of the students.
He's still
right?
in school.
Yeah.
So Dwight just eases over to me and said, hey, we won't touch that garbage can no more. I figured Donk had lit him up about that.
Well, I've got a funny one on.
But let me tell you this. I got even with old Dwight.
Okay.
He was working for Jonathan down there. And you know that yellow Ford Ranger he had?
Yeah.
He'd left it parked down there with the windows down and the key in it. And they had just cleaned up a huge pile of chicken manure down there.
Ooh.
I drove a Ranger right out in the middle of where it was. When he got in it that evening, there wasn't a place you could put your thumb on the headliner that there wasn't a horsefly. I mean, it was full. He had a date that night. That thing was stunk just like chicken manure and had horseflies all in it.
So, old Dwight, one morning, it was a Sunday morning because I was going to church, and they were having Mass at the time down here at 8. And so I walking out, here comes that little yellow Ford Ranger in, and it's Dwight, and got a girl with him. And so I walk up, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. And I had a horse he was going to ride. He said, I'm going to look at that horse. I said, okay, she's down there. So he gets out, and walks down to the barn, that girl's sitting there. She said, where am I at? So what do you mean, where are you at? She said, where am I at right now? And I said, you're in Sunfish. Well, where's Sunfish at? I said, well, we're Edmonson County. She said, oh. She said, do you know this guy? And I said, yeah, why? She said, I was at a party last night, I think up around Eastview or somewhere. And she said, I was ready to leave. And she said, my ride wasn't there. And he said, I'll take you home. And she said, and we're still not home. And I said, well, where you been? She said, we've been driving around all night long. She said, he's talking. And she said, I'm hoping. And I said, well, do you want me to take you home? She said, no, he'll take me home. She said, we're having a good time. She said,
didn't know where I was.
Oh, that's great. That is great.
But so that horse I had, you'd get on her and you'd take off up the road. And as soon as she got outside the barn, she was turned around. She's going back to the barn.
Barn sour.
Yeah. And so I was telling Dwight about it. Dwight said, I'll break her of that.
Wait a minute. Is this the same one you had that you had to use a block to get on that throwed you in the backfield and you didn't have your block with you?
Yes. This thing threw me, and I remember looking down, and I had the reins straight out, and that horse had her head up like that, and I was up so high I had the reins pulled. I mean, she almost threw me into orbit. And when I hit, I mean, they was, and I'm short-legged, if you can't tell. I couldn't get back up on her. But Dwight says, I'll come ride her. Okay, so he comes and gets on her. And at 10 o'clock at night, no Dwight still. And he got her like at 7 or 8 that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so about midnight, I heard the dogs barking. I looked out the window, and I saw the horse go down the driveway.
Just the horse?
No, him and the horse.
Okay.
Hey, you couldn't get within 100 yards of that horse after that. He rode that horse all the way to the corner market from Sunny Point.
Oh,
and just
wow.
rode her legs off that day.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, she would not let you get close to her after that. She'd had enough.
Well, I tell you what, I'll tell you, that made me think of one when they first built the fox pen over there. Of course, Brad lived right there by us, Brad White, and we all had horses. Brad got a horse, and we'd go back there, and right about where you used to come in the fox pen, where the bend is in Brad's driveway, right up past that, we had what we call the racetrack. There was a straight stretch up through there about 150 yards, and that's where we'd race the horses every day. Jason had a mare. I had a quarter horse that Daddy had bought when I was about a freshman in high school. Brad had a little black mare that he bought from somewhere, and Kevin was riding another one of my horses, 4 of us back there, and we're going to race. This one particular time I remember. When we get back there, and I had the fastest horse. I was on the fastest horse, and Jason's on the next fastest horse. So we're back there, and we're lined up. Jason's counting her off. 1, 2, and about the time he said 3, Jason took his cap off and slapped my horse right in the head. My horse rears up. Brad's horse, Kevin's horse, starts spinning in circles, and he can't get him moving. And Brad, his takes off, and he comes off of it. I finally got mine lined out, and I beat Jason by the time we got down to the end of it, and I turned around and looked, and Brad ain't moving, and Kevin's still going in circles back there. It knocked the air out of Brad.
Yeah.
And we got down there and got Brad rolled over. It knocked the air out of him. But we rode, Brad, he rode a lot with us along about the end. But, Jason, he decided he's going to win that day. He just popped mine. Mine reared straight up in the air when he did. I thought he was going to come back on top of me.
I've had horses at different times in life, and I'm over them. I'll never own another one.
I'll never have a day. As long as I've got enough sense now, I may get like Daddy and not remember who I am, and they'll sell all my horses, but I'll never not have one.
I've only
It's
been
in
on
my
a
blood.
horse. I've only been on a horse twice in my life. The second time I was behind somebody. Apparently the saddle was loose, and it dumped us, and I landed on my head. But the first time, I got a question for you, and this might be a dumb question. Can you talk to horses? Do they understand voice commands?
Well, they understand. I mean, you tell a horse, whoa, they're going to stop. I think they understand tone more than they understand the word. It's the way you say things. But a horse, I've had a horse, my horses know what whoa means.
I don't think they understand that whoa means stop like us, but they understand that whoa is the command for them to stop, right?
And, of course, horses, you kiss to them and click to them and things like that.
Well, the reason I asked, the first time I was on a horse, Josh Kentzer had a horse. Do you remember Josh's horse?
Yes.
You know where his trailer was down there where the barn is on Sandy Flat Road?
Yeah.
He talks me into getting on this horse. I know as much about a jet airplane as I know about a horse. So I'm sitting on the saddle, got the reins in my hand. He said, "Tell her to walk." Is that a thing? Or was he lying to me?
Well, I don't
feel
say
like he was-
use the word
I
walk
feel like
with him.
knowing Josh.
I feel like he's lying to me.
Yeah, I feel like he's
think
messing with you.
I think he had some kind of ulterior motive
So we're
here.
sitting there, and I say, "Walk" to this horse, which I feel dumb saying it, but I don't know. And I say, "Walk," and we just sit there. He said, "Tell her to walk." So again, I say, "Walk." She don't move. He said, "You kind of got to click your heels when you tell her to walk."
Yeah, you wave your legs. The way you move in the saddle, if you will move and change your position, that tells a horse kind of the speed that you want them to go.
Well, I had her in the wrong gear because I said walk, and when I clicked, she did 3 steps, and into a dead run we went down the hill toward the ambulance service. You know where that pond is down there? Lapped that pond twice, back up the hill just as hard as we could go. I mean, I'm laid plumb down, just like I'm on the
You were racing.
Like what was where they hauled the mail? Oh, that
Pony
just
Express.
like I was on the Pony Express down through there. And you remember that old barn that sat there, the side sheds? Well, the side sheds is taller than I am. So I just let go of the reins and lay down and grab that horse by the neck. And she runs in that side shed and stops. And I get off of her and I tie her up. And I swore I'd never be on. I lied. I was on that second one there.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I told her to walk wrong. I felt like that wasn't my fault.
No,
I think you was set up.
I think that's what I feel like.
So that idiot I had that Dwight rode, I took her up the road one time, and I get almost to the Low Ridge driveway, and that dog of mine, I look and she's coming down the road, and she has got a honeysuckle hung in her collar that's about 20 foot long, dragging it, and it freaks that horse out. And that horse did a dead run with me, pulling the reins as hard as I could from the Low Ridge driveway all the way down that blacktop, me thinking, she's going down on this blacktop. And when she went through the yard, she run me under an apple tree. And I just reached up and grabbed the limb and I went under it, and she run out from under me, and I flopped down on my back, and I laid there. And I thought, I'm going to kill that horse. But Dad had that old horse that he got loose, and you couldn't keep him in. Well, John Lindsay called me. Or no, it wasn't John. It was John's uncle called me and said, hey, that horse is up here. I went up here and got her. I tied her to the receiver hitch on that Jeep, and I took it back home, pulled it back down the road. But that horse, after being took to that Jeep, pulled back down the road, it stayed at Dad's after that. It wasn't having any more of that.
I'm going to tell you a story right here, and you're not going to want to believe this, but it's the truth. When I first moved over there to by McKelvey, he wanted me to have he wanted to have a horse lot right behind where my big barn is now. That's where his dad had kept horses, because his dad lived. McKelvey grew up where my house was.
Okay.
And he liked to look out and see horses on that hill over there. So we put a 1-strand barbed wire around through there. I had a mare that could grab the insulated handle with her teeth and sling her head sideways.
And open it.
And walk out. I kept finding her out in the lot, and the gate was down. And I thought, who is coming over here and doing this? Who's letting my horse out? And I caught her doing that one day. I swear she did it.
Oh, they get smart.
I think I had some cows like that.
Speaking of cows like that, I was at Jeremy's one day, and I said, you got a bull calf out there? That thing keeps getting out. He goes over at the gun safe, and I'm standing there watching that bull calf, and the minute that gun safe keypad beeps, that calf raises his head up for picking, looks around, and tears out to get back in the field.
He knows what was fixing to happen.
Hey, whoever ground that would rule up the meat grinder. I'm telling you, that idiot stand flat-footed and jump a barbed wire fence.
Like a jumping mule. Like them mules they coon hunt with.
Isn't that yard just a picking, and that keypad beeped on that gun safe, and that head shot up instantly.
I was when that trailer I was telling y'all I lived in over where that barn was. I was in there one morning. Of course, it had 2-inch walls. It was a cheap. I give $5,000, I think, for it, and we lived in that thing like froze to death in the winters. But
Frost
I was in there one morning
on the walls during the winter.
Oh yeah,
that trailer down there, it frost up on the walls.
I was in there one morning asleep, and all of a sudden, kaboom, kaboom! It sounded like the walls was going to cave in. I run out the back door, and Papa McKelvey had pulled up in my driveway in an old Cutlass car that he had bought from Mom and Dad. And he had a shotgun in there stuck out the passenger side window and was shooting skunks that was walking across the field over there. He killed an old skunk and a bunch of mamas. I said, Papa, what are you doing? He said, I'm killing them skunks before they get over and pee in my hay. He had a barn, and they had got in there the year before and stunk up a bunch of hay, and they wouldn't hardly eat it.
Yeah.
And he sat there and shot them. He said, go up there and clean that up for me. I thought, I love you, and I do about anything you tell me to do, but I ain't going over there and cleaning that up. Did Winston still have Blaze when you was around there? Hey, boys, he had a border collie.
When I was a border collies, but they were dumb. He always
when I was about 20, 21 years old, Winston Davis had the best stock dog that I have ever seen. He had a dog named, I believe he's named Blaze. He's a border collie. Winston could walk out there and say, Blaze, go get the cows. Son, he would go over the hill out there, and he would bring every one of them cows in. And when he brought them in, if there was a cow missing, like a cow had got off in another spot, Winston say, no, we're missing one. Go back. That dog would take back off over the hill and would bring him in. I mean, he talked to that dog as nice and better than probably you talked to Jill and Darren, back in the day.
No.
That was the best dog I'd ever seen.
They me and Billy Sanders when I was around over there. So
Yeah.
the dog wasn't there. Billy and Jeremy went and got him.
Y'all was.
Yeah. Billy, Jeremy, go get the cows.
Yeah, you boys all came in after I was out of south circulation up
Yeah,
there.
Billy did it, and then I was in there after Billy, and then Jared come in after me, and then Chris Logston, and
Yeah.
I don't know who it was after that, but yeah, I tell you what, I'm thankful for that whole family over there. If it wasn't for that bunch, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to
I
y'all
tell you,
right
they're
now.
good
I assure
people,
you
man.
that.
Good people.
You got any good ones on Jill you'd like to tell on the
No,
record?
I don't have any stories on Jill. I've got I've shared about everything that I can share in a public forum on Marion. Marion was good. He's good to us. Anytime we needed a job in the summer, he'd help us out. And, I spent a lot of time up there. Of course, I mean, that just he just bobblehead. He's up to something every time. But, oh man,
he was
I tell you,
always doing something to us.
I remember they was working down there at Hill's Pet Food down there. Jason was working for him, and he got hitting golf balls down there.
Yeah,
He'd have his golf clubs out there whacking golf balls.
He hit one up there in the yard, and they're up there on that hill they live on. Teed off up there one day. Winston had old mule over there, hit it all the way across the road, which that's several hundred yards.
Yeah.
Hit Winston's old mule inside the head, took him down to his knees.
Knocked him out.
Hey, let me tell you something. I was cutting hay over in one of my hay fields the other day, and the neighbors over there play golf, and they'd hit some golf balls over there. You catch a golf ball, boys, with a disc mower,
Hey,
they go into orbit. I mean, I got out there and I seen 2 golf balls just bing, bing, and I didn't know what was going on. It scared me to death.
I've been knocked out before by a golf ball. When I was about 14 or 15, my stepdad would get out in the yard and chip balls back and forth. And we lived on that old farm of my mama's up there, and there was a block smokehouse. And I was mowing across that yard, and all of a sudden I woke up in the yard, and the mower off, it didn't shut off like you said, it was out in the field. And I thought, what in the world? And I'd hit one of them golf balls, and it pinged off that block and caught me in the temple and knocked me out off that mower. Old Gilson rider mower. Oh, man. I felt that golf ball had a cut in it, and I had a big knot on the side of right there on my tail. It killed me. I told Mom about it. Of course, she thought it was funny.
I don't blame her. It is pretty funny.
It's kind of funny.
I got to tell y'all a McKelvey story. I was about 18 years old. It's summer before I went to college. I'd worked at a golf course part of the summer that summer, and I come in one day and he knew I was getting ready to move away, and my grandmother had just died, and he said, "Why don't you just quit working up there?" And said, "Work for me." Said, "Just go to work for me," and said, you can work for me the rest of the summer and just stay around here at home. So I went to work for him. Me and Jason, we was up there at Lavanna Raymer's Melinda's up there. Is right there by the bridge on the loop there where we live, where Huff Ridge Road is.
Yeah,
right there.
Berthel Raymer, where the old truck come from.
Old Berthel
yes,
come
sir,
from there.
Old Berthel truck.
Yeah.
See, what had happened is when Berthel died, Berthel had cancer, and when he died, of course, him and Lavanna was first cousins. And as Uncle Herb's girl, Doc Huff's brother and all that, my grandfather told Berthel on his deathbed, said, "As long as I'm alive and I'm able, I will keep this farm going for you." And he did. I mean, we did everything, or he did. Him and Larry did everything. They fed their hay. They drive up there and feed hay. They kept all their cows took care of and everything. And there ain't no telling how many times I've had to go over there and shoot skunks, and they'd call us if anything strange showed up. As Jason said, we'd run the dead wagon, go over and shoot something, drag it off. But McKelvey called me one day, and he said, "Need you to come over here to Lavanna." Said, "I got a couple of calves I need to cut." So, he's going to castrate calves. So I get over there, and it ain't 2. There's about 7 or 8 in there, and they're probably 400 pounds.
Big ones.
There is no chute. There is nothing. We're in a stall about as big as this room right here, and I had to get over there, catch them, get a bull ring in their nose, tie them up to the wall, and then I had to reach through the stanchions, and I was the squeeze chute. And then, of course, if y'all ever knew McKelvey, he's bow-legged. He'd waddle over and sit down on a bucket behind them and get the pliers and the knife out.
Take your
and go
time.
to work.
Yeah.
Let me
I
tell you
got him.
something.
Take your time.
Let me tell you something. by the time we were done with those calves, I couldn't hardly walk.
Yeah.
I was completely exhausted.
We caught some stall one time down there. Papa about the same way, and Papa done got to where he couldn't get around the best, and he sat down Indian style behind one and went to cut it, and it kicked his cap off.
Oh my goodness.
gosh! Well, I'd wallered around there with them. He said, "What are you doing tonight?" It was on a Saturday. I said, me and Jared's mom was dating at the time. I said, we're getting ready to go out tonight. You won't be sparking too bright tonight. I thought, no, I don't even know if I can walk to get to the car and get back to my house. Oh, he wore me out that day, boy.
Can you remember Jeff White?
Oh, yeah. You know, Mom had some pictures that she was showing me earlier today and had a picture of Jeff when he was just a kid.
All right. Do you remember Jeff's dog that he had? You was talking about dogs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You remember that little dachshund he had? Poochie Pie.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard any stories about Poochie Pie?
What?
Jeff would be my dad's first cousin. My papa Kurt's brother, Duval, would have been Jeff's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Jeff comes from a family of, I think there's 5 of them. And him and Dad was 6 months apart in age. And
Is
they
he
were
still around? Or?
No, Jeff got killed when the tractor turned over on him down on the Sunfish Roundhill Road. Have you ever heard about that?
Old tractor had a tricycle front end.
Tricycle
It was
wheel
Alice,
front end. It was
wasn't
a
it?
little Alice. I don't
Maybe
remember
a
what
D14
a
or
14
something?
or something. And the hay was froze. And so he went, this is the best I understand, Brad was on the tractor. It was Brad's birthday. We were at Brad's house.
Wasn't Chad, but Chad got off at the gate.
To use the restroom, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And
His
it was down there at was it Huey's place, I
Now, I
think?
remember Chad. Chad used to come up.
Yeah,
He come up every summer.
Yeah, I
Now,
remember
Chad
Chad.
is Jeff's boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that tractor, there was some hay out there, and the narrow front end, he went past that lump of hay, but the back tar, it was froze. And when it hit, it just kind of throwed it over. And to my understanding, it throwed Brad off several feet, and the fender caught Jeff on the chest.
Really?
Yeah. But anyway, he had a little dachshund dog, Poochie Pie. Poochie Pie. Jeff was my hero growing up. Jeff rode a motorcycle, turned his hat around backwards, stuff that we didn't get
Now,
to do.
how long has it been since he had the accident?
88.
Oh.
Does that sound right? 88, 89?
Yes, I was right about the time I got, little after I got out of high school. He
I
just
don't.
moved
I've
down
never even
here,
heard of
hadn't
that. I don't guess.
Yeah.
That's
He hadn't
odd.
been living down here very long, had he?
No, they run a truck stop up at E-Town.
yeah,
Jeff was hauling fuel when he was 16 years old.
Yeah.
That's, before the days of
yeah.
CDLs and hazmats and all that stuff. But Jeff was awesome. He'd pick you up as a kid, let you touch the ceiling. Mine and Jeff's birthdays on the same day.
Yeah.
Like I said, he had a motorcycle, that hill right there by Roy and Bobby's. Well, I thought that was Mount Everest.
Yeah.
And he'd climb out on that Kawasaki motorcycle, and I just thought that's the awfulest hill climb I ever seen. Of course, now when you grow up, it's not as
Right.
big as it was then, but at the time, you just thought, man, this guy's a superhero. Get you down, put you under a box or something, sit on it, make you mad, but then he'd do something to redeem himself.
I got to tell y'all my favorite Gary White story.
Okay.
Let me finish Poochie Pie here real
Oh,
quick.
you go-
'cause
yeah,
I'll forget,
you go
I'll forget
ahead.
it. I'll forget it. Y'all was talking about castrating those calves. Dad had conned Jeff into coming down and helping with some calves. Of course, if y'all know Dad, everything was 3 months late.
Oh, yeah.
So these calves were 500 pounders, way past they should have been. And so he was cutting them, and that Dotson dog was running around over there, and he's feeding that dog.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And he eat about 4 of them, and he just lays over, I reckon. And you can see in his
See him in his
stomach.
stomach.
See him with his stomach.
Jeff
swallowed them whole.
Jeff said, Gary, you gonna kill Poochie Pie? He said, quit feeding my dog him
Yeah.
so-and-so, But you know how big a dog it is. And, they're that big, he's eating 4, but I reckon he stretched just plumb out.
You can see him under his... A healer can eat a mess of them, can't he?
Yeah,
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's
that,
fine.
that one old hailer I had, back when we was fooling with all them Holstein calves, he could hear that chute rattle and he was around there.
Oh, yeah.
Just make
Hey,
me
let me
sick.
tell you something. Of course, when you cut a horse, it's different. And then I'll get to my Gary story. I had a horse one time. I had a horse gelded over at the house, and I had a male healer around there that was running around there, and the vet had doctored my horse up. Now, usually that when they dope a horse up before it can get through their entire bloodstream, they'll lay down, they'll take care of business and everything, and it doesn't circulate through their whole body. Well, the vet that day had doped my horse up, and he got a phone call and he had to go out, and he spent 15 or 20 minutes on the phone and had to come back in and dope my horse up again. Well, by that time, all these drugs had got through his entire system, including that part of his body.
Yeah.
When he cuts them out and throws them over there on the ground, old Duke eats them. He slept for 2 days. I didn't know if he's ever going to be right again. He slept for 2 days. I doped up my dog and almost killed him. But we're living out in an old house, and at about that time, Gary was working with Roy or for Roy or something like that. It's along about the same time that we'd put the fence. Kevin talked about putting that fence in.
Right.
And me and Jason would just fight to go back there and work with Gary to put that fence up, because working with Gary was fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, anything you got to do with Gary was fun. But it's sometime long about that time, a little before that time, one morning we're sitting in there at breakfast, and we hear a knock on the door, and the door opens, and it's Gary. And his head is just about at the doorknob level. Of course, we just had a set of steps there, and he pokes his head in, and he kind of looks around. And he said, "Where's the coach at?" I said, "He's back there getting ready." He said, "You boys better ease out here with me." He said, "Y'all got some cows out here that's picking on the yellow line." Our cows had got out, and they clean out in the road. And we sat there for like 2 seconds, and then it dawned on us what he said.
What the yellow
we
line
dropped
was.
the forks, and out the door we went. He was out there helping us get them run back up in the barn lot. But yeah, that was my favorite. Yeah, you
Got some
boys
cows.
better ease out here with me. He said, "You got some cows out here picking on the yellow line." Oh man, I tell you, that was that was a fun summer getting to go back there and work with him. Even we did work like a dog. But I tell you, we of course, I don't know if y'all know this, but we're trying to get some Christmas cards put together where we can Photoshop Kyle in on our Christmas cards.
I'm going to get him some
I think-
baby pictures, some young pictures.
Yeah.
He said he's going to Photoshop me into some family photos.
We're going to Photoshop him in back through the years.
I may have a source that can help you with that. This guy right over here, because I'm pretty sure I got photoshopped in some Christmas cards, and he ain't fessed up to it yet.
Hey, I promise I did not mail those Christmas cards.
I'm still not convinced,
I got
boys.
some
What's
Christmas
this now?
cards. I got some Christmas cards from Bub.
I got them too. That's the
Yeah.
funny part. Why would I mail myself one?
To cover up. I mean, what's that sound like to you, Brian? What's that sound like to you?
Wait a minute, is these the ones that show up over at the feed mill?
I don't know about the feed mill. I don't know.
I went over there one year and they had like 6 of them on the front door right there. Was it you and Spike?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd got one. I think they made copies of them and put them on the door over there.
I tell you, I promise.
Oh, buddy.
That's
not me.
great. That is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
think this guy did it?
I'm pretty
oh,
sure.
my goodness.
I'm
Hey,
pretty sure.
If you look, 2 years ago, one came through. It had the Nashville stamp on it. I wasn't even in the country at the time.
Well, that's a good cover. He'll never convince me it wasn't him.
Diabolical.
Oh, that's great.
All right. Well, Brian, thanks for coming up.
Thank you
we're
for
glad
having
to
me. I
have
appreciate
you.
it.
We're glad to have had your family in the community, in the school system.
Yeah.
Y'all have been staples
Sure.
in the school system.
Well, I appreciate
keep
it.
up
Thank
the
you
good
so
work.
much.
Keep up the good work over there.
We're trying to get. I don't have a whole lot of time left. I'm 55 years old. I'm going to try to hold together. If my health will hold up, I'm going to try to stick it out. Just got a 4-year contract. I'm going to try to stick it out 3 or 4 more years, and hopefully I'll be able to, leave some nice facilities and try to get help with the pay and things like that, and leave things in better shape than what I found them.
Yeah,
There you go.
That's what
There you
we
go.
need.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.